While some CEOs have distanced themselves from President Trump in light of his remarks on Charlottesville, some of his base still offering him unwavering support. Joining us right now to talk about that is Foster Friess. He's an investment manager, philanthropist, Republican donor, and Trump supporter, and we welcome him to the program. Good morning to you, Foster.
Oh, Joe, it's so good to hear your voice. Thank you for asking me on. I'm honored to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. This one's Andrew. Joe's over here.
I'm sorry, Foster.
Okay.
It's gonna be Andrew today. So
no, it's
okay.
I don't want you to think this is me either. So
okay,
just know that in advance. I love the backdrop. I love Jackson. Beautiful.
The eclipse is coming soon. It's going to be a nightmare. We're going to have about 20 miles of parking lots on our highways, we're afraid.
Foster, wanted to try to get your thoughts and understanding and reaction, really, to the CEOs disbanding these councils over the week and planning before they were disbanded, at least announced as such by the president, to resign en masse, if you will.
Well, I saw Jeff Immelt resign, and remember the fellow said when Obama was elected, we're all Democrats. And then also the AFL-CIO fellow in resigning said that President Trump, in condemning the Nazis and the white supremacists and the racists, were forced remarks. Donald Trump doesn't impress me as someone who can be forced into do anything. I think it's sincere from his heart. If you really know Donald Trump's history, at Mar-a-Lago, when he opened up the club down there, he admitted Jews and blacks for the first time, and I understand also has an openly gay couple as members in his club. That doesn't sound like what a racist is all about. So I think a lot of this is politically inspired for the people who don't like Donald Trump to make him look bad. In fact, I was really shocked that Fox News had a little clip, and it told what the two Bush presidents had said, how racism is not a part of America, and condemned it. But they said it was in relationship to Trump's statement. Well, anybody is against, we're all against the racism and what was represented there. But they, by putting it up there, implied that they were condemning Trump, I think. And if you look at the history of our country, remember the Democrats were the one who spawned the Ku Klux Klan. Remember Senator Byrd, one of the Klan members, served in Senate? And Franklin Delano Roosevelt, when he dedicated the statue of General Robert E. Lee, just applauded him as a great gentleman, a great leader of men, and then went on to say he's one of the great Christian Americans in our history. Now, should we start taking down Franklin Delano Roosevelt statue? It's sad. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think the question for a lot of CEOs is this past week was what their responsibility, moral duty was in regards to the comments that the president made. And I'm not going to dispute what you said to suggest clearly the president condemned those words, but then he both doubled down on what some people thought was an equivalency between people promoting Nazis and white supremacists and those that were promoting the sort of anti-fascism. And that those are not the same things, and that's why so many people have come forward on this issue, and that he's been slow, not just this week, but has a history and a pattern of being slow to defend that position.
Well, I think that's pretty ridiculous. What does serving on the Manufacturing Council have to do with what happened in Charlottesville? And I think of all the 10, 15, 20 guys, International Paper, Michael Dell, Newell Corp, all the people that stayed on and said, look, we're here to help jobs, not to make political statements. And why did people say that his statements were racist or endorsing? In fact, Senator Graham said he's contrasting the Now, he never said anything like that. In fact, what he said was that both sides have some responsibility for this. Have you ever gone to a prize fight where there's only one fighter in the ring? Have you ever been to one of those, Andrew? It doesn't happen.
Hey, Foster, you saw people carrying torches there. You saw some people who had Nazi flags there. You saw some people who were weaponized, highly weaponized, walking into this. I think any time a president doesn't stand up and unequivocally shoot that down, you are obviously opening yourself up to criticism from people who say, wait a second, why aren't you saying this more quickly? He was very quick to criticize Frazier, who stepped down from the post, immediately lashed out on Twitter. He was not quick to condemn some of the actions that we saw there, and that's very unusual for an American president.
I think it gives a great contrast to Obama. Trump doesn't give the greatest speeches, let's face it. My success came because I harnessed people's strengths and kind of ignored their weaknesses. And Donald Trump is going to improve on his speeches, but that speech maybe wasn't a great speech. You contrast Obama, he gave the greatest speeches in the world. But what did he do? Drawing a red line in Syria, whereas Trump puts 29 Tomahawk missiles down the Syrians' aircraft. And so if you look what Donald Trump said, and I'm really grateful that Susan Bro, who was the mother, thanked Donald Trump for standing up and saying, this is ridiculous. This is the fact. She said that, thank goodness he spoke out against the Nazism. Does anyone really think that Donald Trump is pro-Nazi and pro-white? Like, come on.
But Foster, what? Foster, he talked about the people on the other side of this as being good people. When you see a Nazi flag and torches, don't you think that the correct response is to run the other direction?
Well, that's the media's approach, but I think
that wouldn't be your approach?
My approach is basically, look, I told you when I was a kid, I went to the 7 motels in my town and asked them, why aren't you accepting Jews and blacks? When I was my fraternity president, I got the first Jew in our fraternity. So don't give me any grief about what that might be, my point of view. I've been fighting this fight for a long time to bring equality and decency and to realize the American dream that we're all in this together.
So
what Donald Trump said was that there are probably some people. Now, if you had a rally, said we're going to try to protect the statue of Robert E. Lee, there's a lot of people that probably showed up and say, hey, I'd like to protect that statue, had no idea who the sponsors were. I can imagine that there were maybe some good people there. You don't know that. You don't know if there's good people there. And now Heather Heyer on the other side definitely was a good person. But yet, what about that whole group that confronted the Nazi group? Did you see any battle, any black masks and black suits and baseball bats? I think why Donald Trump gained so much stature with those of us out here in the colonies is the media, who part of the kingdom of D.C., they take things completely out of context. And obviously, you can't have violence without having two groups. Now, Heather Heyer was a peaceful demonstrator. She was one of the good people there. There were probably good people on both sides, but let's go find out who they are.
Let me ask you this, without relitigating this past week, how does the president move forward? It's not just that the CEOs have abandoned, at least publicly, a president who has run on a platform of being a business president, but also so many in Congress, so many in the Senate that have effectively denounced and condemned not just what took place over the weekend, but the way he has reacted to it. And how hard is that going to make it for him to, in the administration, to promote the policies, whether it be tax reform or health care or some of the other things that I know you care so much about?
I think, Andrew, the victim's father, Heather Heyer's father, Mr. Bro, said, hey, it's time we start forgiving each other. And I forgive James Field, who killed my daughter. And I remember what the Lord said, forgive them for they know what they do. These guys are crazies that are doing this stuff. 20-year-old kid running into these people. And so if you look at our country, what happened in Charleston? 9 people were shot. Did you have riots like you had in Ferguson and in Baltimore? The mayor of Baltimore said we had to give them room to destroy. In Charleston, they had hugs and rituals. They didn't have riots. Why is that? It's because there's a value system in our country that is different from place to place. And for the press not to highlight who some of the bad guys were in the anti-protesters is irresponsible. And why the American people are losing confidence in the press. There were some bad people among the protesters against the Nazi guys. And let's not forget that.
Foster,
so with Donald...
We got to go, but I have one final question for you. The president the president's taken a lot of credit for the stock market and the rally that's happened thus far. Does he deserve credit if it falls too? Does he deserve credit both ways?
Well, when I was in the business for like 30, 40 years, I thought the whole political animals always took more credit for it. And I think there's a lot of things going on besides the policies that make a difference. But I just want to make sure. I love Donald Trump, and he's become a victim, and he's being bullied. And why Americans are flocking to him is because they hate people to see bullied. God bless them.
Foster, we appreciate your time and your perspective this morning. Thank you.